This is Suede's Pokemon Path. Highlights. We open on Ava, of course, brushing away her fears and worries thanks to the support of her friends and training diligently for the tournament next year. Nope! And a continuation of the wonderful subversion of tropes that the series previously set up, or perhaps just as a reference to Ash's arc, Ava is as bitter as a rotten grapefruit.
Missed you at Pokemon Club? Next message. No Pokemon Club again? We miss you! Next.
Her parents notice her funk in their regular observance of their daughter's email reading, and her mum finally decides to reveal the truth.
Sweetie, I have to tell you something.
We've been made! Grab the cards! Grab the cards! We're losing Jimmy! Hang on, buddy, you've still got a couple of prize cards left. No, this is the life I signed up for. Don't give the cops nothing, you hear me? The holographic Charizard is stashed. Jimmy! Oh, more's the pity, but she did indeed used to be a competitive card player.
I used to be a competitive Pokemon player.
Yeah, I know.
What? How?
Why else would you have all those ancient Pokemon cards?
That's neat, and I love her design. And this was a pretty good gag, I have to admit.
Ancient? Anyway.
Awesome expression, although I kind of have to side with the mum on this one. If you will recall with me the first episode, Defiance Band came out this year. I guess the show must canonically take place in the future then. But yes, what happened?
I told everybody I was gonna win. And then...
Now it's my turn.
Jeepers, pretty much exactly the same thing. She even got Lacrimosa in the background and everything. But after she gets trounced, and we the audience bear witness to the always dissonant event of hearing Pikachu voiced by someone other than Iko Otani. Ugh, it's like drinking a glass of Coke and finding out its diet. I mean, no shade to the voice actor, it's just ingrained in our DNA, you know? It's an impossible task. But anyway, yeah, Ava apparently inherited her mum's sore loser gene as she quit forever after one tournament loss. But why didn't she tell Ava?
I was worried because I didn't want you to get hurt.
Okay, fair. I guess she kept the cards for sentimental reasons, and when Ava uncovered them by accident in the move, she just wanted to avoid conflict and told her to donate them. A bit extreme, and she could have just said, I used to play, but I got burned pretty bad. Be careful. But I get being put on the spot and not wanting to relive old embarrassments in front of your kids. So yeah, I'd say this did a pretty good job of smoothing out that hiccup in the first episode. Yeah, props. Then we get the school rooftop sunset scene, which is kind of odd as that's more of a Japanese thing, and even then that's very much just a fiction thing. I honestly can't look at those scenes anymore without thinking of this video by Sora the Troll.
屋上にいる。いけないんだ。先生に言っちゃおう。
But even more so here in the US because as far as I know, the doors to the roof are usually alarmed for fire safety. That would have been a slightly different vibe. I mean, it looks like a mega funded place like in High School Musical. Just set this scene in a weird rooftop greenhouse like the school in that movie had. It would even keep with Ava's grass typing. All that aside, Ava kind of goes into how her friends build her up and she tells them she's going to enter, which I feel is a missed opportunity, to be honest. The whole theme of the show, and even if the pep talk specifically, is about how she gets strength from her friends. They even make up a character flaw so that she could make that point in the second episode. And yet when she works to overcome her own depression, we don't get to hear from said friends. One of the best ways our friends can help us is through our own experiences. So hearing from Joshua and Celestine talking about their own journeys and struggles would have been really thematically strong and had the potential to be quite poignant too. Imagine if Celestine confided about her own obsession with winning and why she bullied her opponents. Or if Joshua talked about how proud he was that his enthusiasm made someone else see what he saw. The scene still works, I'm not marking it down or anything, but I'm still seeing the potential to really make the theming more cohesive here. But after an uncharacteristically flat bit of animation and framing, all is well and it's time for costume change. Not even a quick cut montage showing her determination as she suits up in a new outfit to cement her new outlook. Yeah, well, yes, it's Worlds. Yeah, for some reason I thought that losing internationals would mean Ava wouldn't be able to get into Worlds, but like she got second in an international competition. She should be getting freaking sponsors. Why doesn't she have sponsors? But yeah, we meet up with the villain team again, who of course need to reiterate their basic antipathy to Ava's entire worldview.
Fun? Listen, Ava, I'm here for one thing.
Okay guys, I need you on your toes. When I say the phrase, I'm here for one thing, all of you snap your fingers. Why? It's like West Side Story, you know? It gives a sense of intimidation and coordination. We want to look like a bunch of ballet dancing racists? No, not the Jets. We'd be like the Sharks. You want us to pass as Puerto Rico? Do you want access to my cards or not? Fine, jeez. I like the snap, boss. No one likes a kiss up, Kim. You just practice your dab. And so after a brief montage, we get to the finals with 6 minutes to spare. Dare I dream a dream of strategy?
Good luck.
I won't need it.
Oh, and that's 12 failed coin flips in a row. Too bad, Troy. Now, I know that there are decks that don't rely on RNG, but again, I at least appreciate the mind game Troy goes for by forfeiting the first round. Although I feel like that's only really effective when your opponent has a really strong opening to demoralize them, and Ava seems pretty average there, so it just comes across as more pity than confident. Then after a couple of standard cop-out skirmishes, we at least get a call out to an actual card move, thank heavens, with Phalanx's attack hitting for 200 as indicated by the counters, thanks to having all 4 on the field. Weirdly though, the move is different from the actual published card, which would only hit for 120. Weird. But anyway, Troy must have some serious strategies for cycling his deck for those cards. I wish we could see it! But yeah, Ava's in another bad spot, though I thought it was best out of 3. She can't afford 1 loss. Maybe her other loss was during the montage, who knows. What matters is after an admittedly amazing introduction of Groudon,
Unbelievable!
Ava turns Troy's psychological warfare back on him.
Just playing the game the way I want to.
Well, you're playing poorly.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Like, I know this is meant to be inspiring and heartwarming and all, but I'm sorry, all I can see is Ava noticing Troy's morale-based play and throwing it back in his face by annoying him into tilting. Obviously it can be both, but I like the fact that the villain is basically annoyed into submission, Spider-Man style. It's even signified by the amount of cards in his hand, so even though I would have really liked to know how a stadium card and evolving to Blossom beat Groudon, at least we get to see Rare Candy in action, evolving Oddish straight past Gloom, which is something, I guess. But yep, the victory is secured, and Ava gets the trophy from Pokemon CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara. Although, if this series really is set in the future, it looks like he's going to find some really good hair dye very soon. And since Ava is still technically the protagonist of a Pokemon animated series, the writers don't know what to do with her after winning a tournament, and the story ends. Thoughts? Not bad. It was a perfectly decent finisher to the overall narrative, gave a good message and maintained the high quality of animation with some amazing cuts and expressions in there, but I guess I can't help but be a little disappointed in how it followed such a strong setup in the last episode. Now, part of that is on me, my expectations shouldn't affect the overall quality, but at the same time, we can only judge narrative by what has come before, and when we had such a juicy subversion and a really powerful, relatable, and well-written message in the last one, I feel like this episode just hit a perfectly functional win by 1 run when the bases were loaded, as opposed to the knockout home run that was possible. I've basically gone through all my gripes in the highlights, more from the friends, deeper from the mom, strategies reflecting personal growth rather than a nebulous win by wishy-washy proxy fantasy battles, but it's fine. Good even. In fact, I'd probably say the way I feel about this episode sums up how I feel about the miniseries as a whole. Overall, it's a good, fun, fresh take on the property, but the glimpses of brilliance that shines through just frustrate me by making me wonder what could have been. But alternatively, that also means I was invested. Can't be disappointed if you don't care, right? The peaks and valleys made it memorable, and I want to see more from this studio. A lot more. I want a 12-episode streaming order of a Pokemon Chronicles style anthology series from this team yesterday. Their first foray into Pokemon with Bidoof was beautiful, and I just want to see what they can accomplish without the choking restrictions of product mandates in a 10-minute runtime. So yes, I was a little disappointed in the end, but I was only disappointed that it wasn't amazing, which still means it was very good. This one's a great ball, and the overall series itself, I'd say it's an ultra ball. I'm glad I watched it. Trivia. So who even is this team that I'm rooting for? I spent 4 episodes praising and criticizing them without naming them once, so let's fix that right now because they're fascinating. TAIKO Studios is a joint production company between the US and China, with one small studio in Burbank and the other in Wuhan. You might think, oh, you mean like most big studios do when they outsource to South Korea? No, actually. This is a true collaboration. With big cartoons, the Asian animation farms basically get 0 input. They get the keyframes and they animate them to exact specification. But with TAIKO, while the storyboarding and writing is done in the US, there's a lot more back and forth about the animation, cinematography, and timing. I know the internet can be an utter hellscape of misinformation and toxic bubbles, so it can be easy to forget the amazing and awesome things that can be done with it, especially when it comes to group projects. TAIKO's first short film that put them on the map was this one, One Small Step, which I'll link in the description. Check it out and keep an eye on them. I think they're just going to keep getting bigger and better. I predict they'll have an Arcane-style mega hit one day in the future. Their style's too unique not to notice. Also, did you notice that Pikachu said its own name? As I mentioned in a previous episode, that nearly never happens outside the anime, though I will admit that Pikachu is the one with the most exceptions to that, going all the way back to Pokemon Yellow. Pikachu at the time of writing is back to its regular cry in the games, though they still use Pokespeak in Pokemon Go. But funnily enough, you know who the last Pokemon to say their name in the official games was? Gigantamax Meowth. And lastly, you know how Tsunekazu Ishihara showed up at the end to give Ava her trophy? That seemed like a contrivance to shoehorn in a vanity cameo by the Big Cheese, but no, Ishihara-san really does present the World Championship trophies every year. That's kinda neat. It does make a bit of sense as well when you consider that the trading card game was his idea, even if he outsourced the mechanics design to Wizards of the Coast. Imagine if Wizards of the Coast kept partial rights to the Pokemon trading card game. Haha. Who's that Patreon? It's Brian Palaccio. They ask, you get one pet Pokemon and one battling Pokemon in real life. Which would you choose? I'm assuming no legendaries here, otherwise my answer would be God. And God. I'll also assume I'm not living in a world already containing Pokemon in this scenario, so this is like, what superpower would I have? In terms of common Pokemon, I'd say I'd have an Onix for a battler, since everyone would immediately have to step back and reconsider their strategy, and it'd provide good cover. And as a pet, probably Zoroark. Big cuddly mane, and they can go out and buy me snacks if I'm sick. It's Rhyhorn 1967. They ask, are there any places you want to visit someday? I've yet to visit any kind of ancient ruin, and that's very high on my bucket list at least. I just want to be able to see proof that people really have lived that long, you know. Seeing a pillar that's older than Christianity, a mural that's seen empires rise and fall multiple times. I guess I'd quite like to visit the UK and see both Hadrian's Wall and the Old Ferryboat Inn, a pub that's been in business since the year 560. That's just like one thing though. I'd also like to try the signature burger of every fast food chain in the US and visit the Snake Cafe in Japan and tons of other stuff, but they asked me to just pick one. It's BSR! They ask, favorite fruit? Cherry? Yeah, I always like the flavor of cherry, especially artificial cherry flavor, oddly enough. It sucks because cherry flavored anything is basically non-existent in New Zealand, so I have to just import or binge when I visit the States. I also love real cherries too. I even like eating around the pit. It's just challenging enough to be satisfying, while still giving a substantial reward, unlike freaking pomegranates. Your juice is delicious, pomegranates. You could have had it all, but instead you chose violence. Disappointing. Well, after all that, what more is there to say but goodbye! Extra special thanks to Brandon K, Calvin Atkinson, John G. Robertson, Jonathan Johnson, Matt Stores, Marie Spear, Mystic Samurai 1983, The Dark Master, Trey McGowan, Winters King, and Wolf Raptor.